So let's talk station grounding. First, the disclaimer. I am not an electrician. I am not an engineer. I am not an expert in any stretch of the imagination. Take this as just general information to start your own research, because I cannot give you specifics, nor can any other person give you specifics unless they are one of those particular people. So, disclosure past us. ARRL has a grounded book. I believe it's in second edition now. I don't remember if there's a part 2 or if it's just a second edition, but is a good start for research on the topic. But I tend to walk away from that book being more confused than having a plan going forward, because they did very much like I'm going to do and keep it very general, because specifics they say to seek out professionals or people who are experts. So, but that is a great resource to start with, to read through, research. I would highly recommend at least reading it so you kind of have a general idea of what general ideas from there. Okay, that's covered. So here's what I did. I have no idea where my house ground, that is for the electrical panel, where that ground rod is. It could be buried underneath my deck somewhere. I can't find it. I don't ever recall seeing a ground rod there when I was growing up. I don't know if there even is a ground rod next to the panel somewhere outside. I know it's not connected to the pipe water line because I just replaced the water line about 8-10 years ago, and that entire thing was plastic the first time. It is definitely still plastic today. Sometimes you'll see that happen as well. There might be a ground rod over off the power pole. I've never researched that. So because I had no idea where these ground rods were, I said, screw it. I'm tapping a rod right here next to my shack, and that's all I'm doing. So I tapped the rod in there, and that is my station ground for all RF. It's not attached to anything else, but that is okay. It has worked for me. So from there, I ran a ground wire, like a 2-gauge, 5-gauge, I don't remember the gauge wire, just plain copper wire from that pole up into my shack. So that is not into my station. That is my shack ground, and that is attached to a copper strip that I got off of Amazon to ground everything else. So my radio, my radio attached, all my radios and equipment attached to that equipment, all my HF at least, and then that all goes out to the common ground outside. As I was bringing stuff in, I had the idea, I need a pass through anyway, so why don't I pass it through a metal plate cover, that goes over the plate. That way I can tie them all together into a common ground there as one other common ground point. So that is what I did. So now they are all attached there, including the VHF, UHF. They're also all grounded at the pole because they are with a lightning arrestor. And from there, everything is kind of just works together. I have not had grounding issues. I have not had RF burns from the system, and that is awesome. Going slightly lower. There we go. So from there, all my equipment is tied into that. Now the VHF radio doesn't have a ground lug, so I didn't ground it. The power supply didn't have a ground lug, so I didn't ground that. But everything else is tied in together at one point. That is grounding at the most basic level, is getting everything tied together and into there. Now, do I have issues? Do I have ground loop issues? Yes, I do. I have ground loop issue with my trying to use my mixer within the audio feed into the radio. I decided not to do that because I was having issues with, I think, ground loop. Definitely some sort of RF issue. That's the only big symptom I've had throughout the years, and that's where I left that. Just take your time, plan it out. If you can attach all of your ground rods together, absolutely do it, because that is the best practice. That's up the code, etc. Do your best to get as everything tied together. And the concept behind that isn't necessarily that if an electric jolt goes through your ground wire in your house, that it goes through the entire system and then fries your radio. That's not how it's supposed to work. By having a common ground, you're tying them all together into one system. And then it doesn't matter where the jolt goes, it's going into the ground and it's spreading that out across an area within the ground. And the more ground rods you have tied in there, the more grounding, the better off your system is. That's not to say you still can't fry a radio due to lightning, because lightning will fry anything and everything it touches. But it will protect you against nearby strikes. And that's really more so what you're protecting against when you're especially lightning grounding your system. The other side of it is just it helps reduce your noise, helps reduce common mode currents, and things like that along the way as well. So do your best at grounding, do your research as best you can. That's going to be your critical parts to being successful in grounding your station. I will show you what I do when I finally get it. I have a huge challenge coming up myself on that. I'm still trying to determine how I'm going to resolve it. We will get to that when I get there. So until then, 7-3.